We'll get started. Thank you for joining the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Northwestern Division for today's Missouri Basin conference call. This call will provide an update of current runoff conditions as well as status updates from the Kansas City and Omaha districts. These calls will be held each Thursday at 3 p.m. Central Time through the end of this month. These calls are only part of our efforts to communicate with Basin residents. We place all our news releases on our website at www.nwd.usace.army.mil and on social media at nwdusace. We encourage the public to use these resources as well as our webpage to get the webpage app to get the latest information from the Corps, the National Weather Service, and other partner agencies. These calls are provided as a courtesy to congressional representatives, tribal, state, and local government officials, including levee sponsors and emergency managers, and the media. I am Eileen Williamson, and I will be moderating today's call. These calls are recorded and placed on the Defense Video and Imagery Distribution System at www.dbidshub.net/unit/USACE-NWD. Your participation acknowledges your consent to be recorded. All lines have been placed on mute for this call. To unmute your line when asking a question, press *6. Please be aware that the forced mute function does not work on all phones, so if I ask, please use your phone's own mute function and do not place the call on hold. The agenda for today's call is as follows. Northwestern Division Readiness Contingency Office, Mr. Tom Brady. National Weather Service, Missouri Basin River Forecast Center, Mr. Kevin Lau. From Missouri River Water Management Division, John Remus and Mike Swenson. From Kansas City District, Eric Shoemate with Water Management and Judd Knieven with Emergency Management. And from the Omaha District, Matt Kratzky, Chief of Emergency Management. These updates will be followed by a question and answer session. Calls for questions will not be part of the recording if none are asked. I'm going to turn the call over to you, Tom Brady. Remember to press *6 to unmute.
Thank you, Eileen. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we got you.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Tom Brady. As Eileen mentioned, I'm with the Division's Readiness Contingency Operations, which includes oversight of the region's Public Law 8499 Rehab Repair Program for flood control and coastal emergencies. Both the Omaha and Kansas City districts have largely transitioned to recovery support along the Missouri River Basin. Rainfall runoff from this past week is now reaching the Missouri River at the Plattsmouth and will continue to contribute to persisting high water stages. However, there is no reported impact to recovery operations. We continue with what we call Phase 1 of our recovery efforts. That is, closing or repairing the breaches where the most critical infrastructure and population centers are at risk. The waters in the banks of the Missouri, Kansas, and Osage River Basin remain higher than average for this time of the year, and water still remains on the toes of many levee systems. However, teams are gradually being able to access damaged levees to refine the assessment of the damages to the some 850 miles of impacted levees within our region. For the full repair efforts, or what we call Phase 2 of the recovery support, we are developing project information reports, or PARs, which are used to develop strategies and determine the economic feasibility of repairing eligible levees. Of the 181 requests for rehab assistance that we received, we have thus far approved 63 PIRs. These approved PIRs help enable us to request funding for subsequent engineering and design efforts. The Omaha and Kansas City district representatives will be on the line, and they'll provide further details on the progress of those recovery efforts. So back to you, Eileen. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Tom. I'll turn it to you, Kevin Lau.
Thank you, Eileen. Again, my name is Kevin Lau. I'm with the National Weather Service Missouri Basin River Forecast Center in Kansas City. Currently, we have flooding ongoing in the state of South Dakota along the James and Big Sioux rivers. We have flooding in the state of Kansas along the Big Blue immediately upstream of the Tuttle Creek Reservoir. And in the state of Missouri, we have flooding along the Osage. Along the Missouri River itself, we have minor flooding extending from Nebraska City to St. Joseph, Missouri, and then from Napoleon, Missouri through Miami. Looking over the next 7 days, there are 2 time periods that pose the greatest threat for future rain. Saturday into Sunday, there's thunderstorm activity expected across Nebraska and Kansas. The placement is very uncertain at this time. Average amounts could be in excess of 1 inch with localized pockets of heavier rain possible. And then a more organized system will develop over the Dakotas Sunday into Monday with widespread rain probable with aerial averages up to 2 inches. But after that, as of right now, no heavy rainmakers are anticipated after next Monday for the remainder of next week. Thank you, and that concludes my comments until the questions at the end of the call.
Thanks, Kevin. I'll turn it over to Mike Swinson with Missouri River Water Management.
Okay, thanks, Eileen. Late last week, we posted updated long-term monthly runoff and reservoir forecasts to our website. The updated annual runoff forecast is 52.9 million acre-feet, which would be the second highest on record. System storage is currently 67.6 million acre-feet, just below the base of the system's exclusive flood control zone. Water in storage has decreased about 0.4 million acre-feet since last week. 11.5 of the 16.3 million acre-feet of total flood storage is occupied. Yesterday, we posted an updated short-range forecast or 3-week forecast to our website. The forecast shows Gavin's Point releases will be held at 70,000 CFS through August to manage reservoir levels and continue evacuating water from the reservoirs. Fort Randall Reservoir is at elevation 1361.7. The reservoir, which had been steadily declining, is up 0.4 feet since last week due to heavy rain in that area over the past several days. The reservoir is more than 6 feet above its normal summer operating level. Releases from Fort Randall are currently 65,000 CFS and are expected to range from 65 to 67,000 CFS over the next week. Big Bend releases will range from 52,000 to 54,000 CFS over the next week. Oahe Reservoir is at elevation 1616.8, down 0.2 feet since last week. The reservoir is 9.3 feet above the base of the annual flood control zone. Releases from Oahe are currently about 56,500 CFS and are expected to remain near that rate over the next week. Garrison Reservoir is at elevation 1851.1, down 0.6 feet since last week. The reservoir is 1.1 feet above the base of the exclusive flood control zone. Releases are forecast to remain at 46,000 CFS through August. Fort Peck Reservoir is at elevation 2245.8, down 0.4 feet since last week. The reservoir is now out of its exclusive flood control zone and is 11.8 feet above the base of the annual flood control zone. Releases from Fort Peck are approximately 15,000 CFS and are expected to remain near that rate through August. We will continue to monitor conditions in the basin and make any necessary release adjustments this summer and into the fall. Thank you. That concludes my update.
Thanks, Mike. Hand it to Kansas City. Eric Shoemate. Kansas City, star 6 to unmute. Did we lose Kansas City?
Nope, we're here. We're just fighting technology. So,
okay.
Good afternoon.
Over to you.
Thanks, Eileen, and good afternoon. I'll give an update today on the reservoir conditions in the Kansas City District and our water management decisions moving forward. I'll start with Kansas River Basin. As a whole, the 4 reservoirs in the lower Kansas River Basin, Milford, Tuttle Creek, Perry, and Clinton, are collectively at 51% of their total flood control storage occupied. Today's conditions are as follows. Milford and Tuttle Creek are approximately at 50%, not much of a change from a week ago. And Perry and Clinton reservoirs are at 54% and 56% flood pool occupied, respectively. Both of those are slightly up from last week, based on some rainfall that we had late last week and in the past day. Milford and Tuttle Creek are both releasing 2,000 cubic feet per second today. They're approximately passing inflows from each reservoir. Perry is releasing 2,000 CFS, and Clinton is releasing 1,500 cubic feet per second. We anticipate maintaining these releases and operations in the short term as we determine a long-term approach of how we will empty the approximately 2 million acre feet of water flood storage that we have stored in the Kansas River Basin. We'll move to the Osage River Basin, and the good story here is we've seen broad improvement of the conditions across all the Osage River Basin reservoirs. As a whole, the 6 reservoirs have approximately 23% of their flood storage occupied. Each one of these has seen a marked improvement from where they were last week. Pomona, Melbourne, and Stockton and Pomme de Terre all range from 17 to 20% of their flood pool occupied. Each improved from last week. Hillsdale Reservoir is at 33% of its flood storage occupied, which is down 5% from where it was last week. And Truman is at 25% of its flood pool occupied. Last week at this time on this call it was at 35%. So we've seen 10% of the flood storage evacuated from Truman over the past week. Truman is releasing 48,500 cubic feet per second today. We anticipate maintaining this release through the weekend, and early next week we'll begin stepping down releases towards a target release of 32,000 cubic feet per second. That we should reach that by the end of next week. So again, continuing with 48,500 through the weekend, and then we'll slowly start stepping down over the course of next week. On the Kansas side of the Osage Basin, Melbourne and Pomona are reduced to low flows due to downstream conditions from the reservoirs, and we'll likely make a modest increase to 500 cubic feet per second from each of those starting this weekend on Saturday. Hillsdale is making a release of 160 cubic feet per second, and we anticipate just maintaining that. On the Missouri side, Pomme de Terre and Stockton are releasing 3,000 and 4,800 cubic feet per second, respectively. We anticipate maintaining that for the short term. There is forecasted rainfall within the Osage River Basin over the next 48 hours. Where and when this rain falls may affect our release schedule that I just presented, and it may also adjust the timeline for reducing releases from Truman, or it might actually make us reduce releases for downstream flood conditions. It all dependent on where that forecasted rain falls over the next couple days. That concludes my comments. Over.
Thanks, Eric. We'll hand it over to Judd.
Good afternoon. I'm Judd Knieven, Emergency Management Chief for the Kansas City District. Our Emergency Operations Center remains activated at Level 2 partial activation. At any time assistance is needed, please call our 24-hour emergency line at 816-426-6320. Again, that number is 816-426-6320. If you leave your name, number, and a short message, we'll get back to you as soon as possible. We continue to evaluate the posture of our Emergency Operations Center, and we do believe that over the next few weeks to the next month, we will change our posture to probably an emergency watch condition. We're just not there yet. To date, Kansas City District has received a total of 107 requests for levee rehabilitation assistance. We have numerous damage assessments and project information reports in development. 19 repair projects have been approved. 11 additional project information reports will be transmitted to our higher headquarters for approval today. We are on track to have damage assessments and project information report development completed by the end of September. We continue to support pumping operations for several levee districts, and we continue to provide technical and direct assistance on an as-needed basis. The temporary emergency repair contracts at Mill Creek and at the Big Tarkio River in Holt County, Missouri, to close those breaches on both levee systems were awarded the 18th and 19th of July. A joint USACE contractor site visit was conducted on 29 July with the notice to proceed issued the following day. Rock deliveries and placement for this rock is expected to take approximately 10 weeks to complete. We should begin moving rock next week, and the construction contract required completion date is 15 October of 2019. Although river stages have fallen at many locations, we expect river stages upstream of St. Joe, Missouri to remain at or slightly above flood stage for the foreseeable future. Please continue to pay attention to watches and warnings issued by the National Weather Service as conditions on the river can change quickly should heavy rainfall return to our area. Thank you. This concludes my remarks.
Thanks, Judd. To you, Matt.
Thanks, Eileen. This is Matt Kraske, the Readiness Branch Chief with the Army Corps of Engineers Omaha District. To date, we've completed 10 initial breach closures within the Omaha District's area of operations, and we have 39 remaining. Yesterday, we awarded a $10.3 million contract to repair levee systems R616, 613, and R613 south of Offutt Air Force Base. Work is anticipated to begin on these levees within the next couple of weeks. We also awarded a contract for $183,000 to repair the Pierce North Branch Elkhorn River Right Bank levee system in Pierce, Nebraska. This system provides an increased level of flood risk management for over 550 structures and approximately 1,100 people. This is the first of the full rehabilitation projects to begin addressing damages to the tributary systems throughout the Omaha District's area of responsibility that were damaged during the 2019 spring flooding. We are anticipating that we will have 5 to 10 more of the tributary projects ready for award within the next 2 months to continue these repair efforts. For levee 611-614 near Council Bluffs, Iowa, we are about 90% complete with the contract scope of work for the initial breach closure, and we anticipate completion around the 23rd of August. For levee system L601 near Bartlett, Iowa, we are at about 90% completion with the final sand burn grading and riprap placement, and haul road deconstruction is all that remains. The sand berm and levee are being graded and shaped today with the follow-on work to continue. As previously announced, Breach B on levee L575 near Hamburg, Iowa was closed, and at this time the scope of the contract is about 75% complete. We are anticipating the remaining sand placement, grading, and demobilization to take about 30 days. For levee L575A and B Stage 2 repairs, we are still working through our contracting process to add a clay cap to the sand breach closures. Engineering and design is performing damage assessments and site visits to assess potential for additions to the scope on the Stage 2 contract. Construction is expected to commence towards the end of this week. Significant progress is being made towards closure of Breach A on levee L550 between Watson and Rockport, Missouri. The contractor is running a day and a night shift at this time. We anticipate breach closure to occur sometime this week or early next week. For Breach B of levee L550, we have completed a haul road and have created a 100 linear foot rock revetment near the riverbank to minimize the Missouri River flows towards the work site. For regular updates on the repair efforts to flood control structures in the Missouri River Basin, visit the Omaha District System Restoration webpage at https://www.nwo.usace.army.mil and click on the red Levee Status Updates icon on the left side of the page. There, you can track the status updates, view photos and videos, and also see which levees are not active in the PL 8499 program. Finally, please assist us in communicating that life safety is our primary focus in our efforts to repair the levee systems, and we continue to work with federal, state, and local emergency management agencies to ensure that the public is aware of the continued safety risks associated with the damaged levees. We appreciate your assistance in spreading this message and sharing in our responsibility to keeping the public informed about the risks associated with the levees. Thank you, and this concludes my comments.
Thanks, Matt. We'll now begin the question and answer session. We'll start with questions from congressional delegation members, tribes, state and local government officials to include levy sponsors and emergency managers, and then we'll move over and open questions to the press. We'll field the questions by state in alphabetical order. You'll need to press *6 to unmute your phone. Please state your name and the organization you represent before asking your question. We'll start with the state of Iowa. Kansas. Missouri. Montana.
I have some questions for Missouri.
Okay, your name?
Name is Joe Gibbs. I'm an engineer here in Central Missouri. I'm on the board of the Missouri Levee and Drainage District Association. I worked several places in the flood of '93. I'm curious as to what the status is on FEMA floodplain development permits. I've heard rumors that sometimes the permits are needed and they're not needed. Can anybody help me with what the situation is there?
So since it is through FEMA, you'd need to talk to FEMA, but secondly, any type of permitting process is handled through the regulatory offices in their respective districts. So for the state of Missouri, that would be the Kansas City District Regulatory Office, and we can get you in touch with them. Judd, can your office provide him the contact information for the Kansas City District Regulatory Office?
I can, but from a floodplain development permit, it's really at the local county level. Counties are responsible for issuing floodplain development permits.
All right, thank you.
Do you happen to know if they're going to be issued like they were in '93? They were issued without any engineering studies or anything.
You'd have to talk to your county floodplain manager.
Okay. What about 8499 projects run by the Corps? Did you all furnish those permits?
Yes. So from the Kansas City District perspective, we do the NEPA evaluation, and we have programmatic NEPA in place. We also have general operating permit with the state of Missouri for land disturbance, and we have a 404 Section 10 permit in place called GP 41 to help local levee owners and operators with recovery, and that permit has a Missouri State Clean Water, a 401 water certification from the state of Missouri.
Right.
So we help you with all of that, Joe.
What about the floodplain development permits?
No, we don't step on the floodplain development side of it.
So
mostly all you're doing is repairing your levee. So when we develop your project information report, we do an analysis here within the Corps to determine if we're going to have any impacts on flood heights. And because we're repairing them and we're not increasing the height of your levee,
sure,
generally we're not having an impact. And most of our non-fed levees the top of levee elevation is below the base flood elevation, the 1% chance flood.
Right.
So they're submerged, and they do not negatively impact that base flood elevation.
Right. I have one more question. Is it possible to get what the percent flow is in the river right now that is regulated and the percent that is not regulated, or give me the number so that I can compute it?
Yeah, hang on just a second. I got Eric sitting here.
Joe, this is Eric Shoemate. We did not prepare that for this call. It was presented on the last call. If you wanted to pull the information, it'd be a week old.
It probably hadn't changed that much.
I wouldn't suspect it changed much.
Right. But it's not ready for this call then. Okay, thank you very much. Do you anticipate any problems on evacuating accumulated waters with ice jams and things? I know this is a little far ahead, but, we could have a flood this fall. And I remember 93, water came up twice.
Joe, this is John Remus, Missouri River Basin Water Management. Our studies and our release projections are set to so that we evacuate all of the flood control storage by next season's runoff, by the 2020 runoff season.
Right.
We can, something can happen where we would not be able to do that, but right now we are scheduled to get that done.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions from the state of Missouri? Again, star 6 to unmute your phone. Montana? Nebraska? North Dakota? South Dakota? Wyoming?
Can I ask a question from South Dakota?
Yeah, go ahead. Who is this?
Jeff Dooley from Dakota Dunes.
Hey, Jeff.
Question for Mike or John. I noticed in your reservoir bulletin that the Bureau of Reclamation Section 7 projects have now got down to the multi-use zones for most of them, with the exception of maybe Tiber Dam. Will any reduces and releases from those dams be forthcoming, and how will that affect, or will it have any effect on any of the Missouri mainstem reservoirs?
Yeah, Jeff, this is Mike Swenson. We have started to see some reductions in releases from some of those reclamation projects like Canyon Ferry and Tiber and Yellowtail. And some of those, they started like last week, so we are starting to see some reduction in inflows, for example, to Garrison in the last few days here due to some of those cuts. So I guess the short answer is yes, we are starting to see some reductions in their releases.
Okay. Will there be further reductions, do you think, or not? Or is that...
I can't say for sure. I do know they're still making some reductions at Tiber this week. The other ones, we don't have any long-term forecasts right now from them.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. State of Wyoming? Okay, we'll move to the media. State of Iowa, star 6 to unmute your phone. Kansas. Missouri. Montana. Nebraska.
Yeah, this is Nancy from the World Herald.
Hey, Nancy.
Hey, I have a question on the 616, 613. And this is a follow-on to the press release you sent out. On the cost reimbursable contracts, I know you guys said that, we're going to do this some more this year. But I wanted to put that in context, and I didn't know whether this is the first cost reimbursable contract or that's being fairly commonly used this summer. And if it's, I didn't know, like maybe the 4 priority levies in Iowa were similarly contracted. Just looking for some context.
Sure. Hi, Nancy. This is Matt Kraske. The 4 priorities were not a cost reimbursable contract. However, L550 was a cost reimbursable contract.
So, just for context, what made that a priority, and do you see this being used very much in the rest of the summer?
Can you clarify that a little for me, Nancy?
Yeah, what made L550 a priority so that you would use a cost reimbursable contract on it?
Sure. There's still a large portion of the flow from the Missouri River coming through L550, which is affecting everything to the south, landward of the levees. So that's why that one fell into the queue where it did.
Okay. And then, so it'd be fair to say it's not a commonly used. It won't be a commonly used tool this summer.
That's fair to say. The majority of the contracts that we're going to let will be IFB, which is invitation for bids.
Okay. And I had a handful of questions on the Pierce work. I wonder whether it makes sense for me to just email those to you, or do you want me to ask them now?
It would probably be easiest if you email them, Nancy.
I will do that to Michael Izzard.
Sure, and then, just have him pass them to me, and then I'll get you the answers.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everybody. That's it. Thank you.
You bet. Thanks, Nancy.
Thanks, Nancy. Any other questions from the state of Nebraska? Again, star 6 to unmute. North Dakota? South Dakota? Wyoming? Any final questions before we adjourn? Okay, the next call will be next Thursday at 3 p.m., August 15th. Thank you.